What if a mysterious object carved into ancient stone wasn't just symbolic, but something we still don't fully understand today? Across multiple ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of kilometers and thousands of years, archaeologists keep finding the same strange object. It looks like a small bag with a handle. And the most surprising part is how consistent the design is, no matter where it appears. The most well-known examples come from ancient Mesopotamia, especially from the Sumerian and later Assyrian civilizations, dating back over 3,000 years. In detailed stone reliefs, human-like figures and winged beings are shown holding a small bucket-shaped object with a clearly defined handle. These figures are often identified as apkallu, mythological beings associated with wisdom and ritual practices. In many cases, they are shown next to sacred trees, performing what appear to be ceremonial actions. The object itself is almost always depicted the same way. It has a rigid structure, a flat base, and a curved handle that fits perfectly in one hand. This level of consistency is unusual for symbolic art, where shapes often vary depending on the artist or time period. Here, the proportions remain nearly identical across different carvings, suggesting that the object had a specific and recognizable form. In many scenes, the bag appears together with another object that looks like a pine cone. Researchers believe this combination may represent a ritual practice, possibly involving sprinkling water or oils. Based on ancient texts, the most widely accepted explanation is that these objects were ceremonial containers, sometimes described as ritual buckets used in purification ceremonies. But this explanation starts to break down when similar shapes appear outside Mesopotamia. At Göbekli Tepe, one of the oldest known archaeological sites in the world, dating back over 11,000 years, carvings include symbols that closely resemble the same bag-like form. This is thousands of years older than Sumerian civilization. Even more surprising, similar shapes have been identified in Mesoamerican cultures, including early Olmec carvings. These civilizations developed independently, with no confirmed contact between them. Yet the object looks strikingly similar. That raises a difficult question. Why would completely separate cultures depict nearly identical objects? One explanation is symbolic convergence, where different civilizations independently create similar symbols to represent the same idea. A container holding something important or sacred is a concept that could emerge in multiple places. But the precision of the design makes this harder to fully accept. The object does not just look symbolic, it looks functional. The handle is proportioned in a way that suggests it was meant to be carried. The base appears stable, as if it could be placed on a surface. The overall design resembles a real object more than an abstract symbol. This has led some researchers to question whether we are missing part of the picture. More speculative theories suggest the object could represent lost technology or tools that no longer exist. Others believe it may symbolize knowledge, power, or some kind of transfer between humans and the divine. However, there is no physical evidence to support these ideas. No actual object matching this exact design has ever been recovered. And that detail is important. If these were common tools, we would expect to find at least one surviving example. The fact that we only see them in carvings suggests they may have been ceremonial, rare, or even symbolic representations of something that was never meant to be preserved physically. Another key detail is who is holding them. In almost every example, the object is carried by important or mythological figures, not ordinary people. This suggests it had a specific meaning or role, possibly tied to status, ritual authority, or religious practice. Today, the most accepted explanation remains that these were ritual objects used in ceremonies. But that does not fully explain their consistent design or their appearance across different cultures and time periods. The Sumerian bag remains one of those rare cases in archaeology where the object is clearly visible, widely documented, and still not fully understood. It is not hidden or obscure. It appears in some of the most studied sites in the world. And yet, there is still no single explanation that accounts for all the evidence. Sometimes the mystery is not in what we cannot see, but in what we see too often without fully understanding it.
Hey, listen up. There's a red alert. NASA supercomputers have calculated that there are only 2,021 years left until the end of the Earth. Our planet is about to… Oh, wait a minute. Oops, I'm sorry. I thought these zeros were a mistake. Well, the research actually says 1,000,000,2021 years in the future. Woo, that's a relief. Breathe normally. Still, this means that our planet officially has an expiration date. And no, this is not science fiction. It's a very real study that shows how, why, and when life on Earth will end. So, thanks to NASA and Japan's Toho University, we can now mark the calendar. It'll happen in around 1 billion years. But what about how and why? Well, even as recently as the early 20th century, scientists still didn't know what powered the sun. One of the first big ideas was that the sun was basically a giant piece of charcoal, just a huge ball of fire burning some kind of fuel. But that was easy to rule out. At the rate the sun puts out energy, it would have burned through that kind of fuel in just a few thousand years. And even back then, geologists and paleontologists already agreed that Earth was at least 100 million years old, if not more. That meant the chemical burning couldn't have possibly kept the sun shining for that long. So, scientists turned to another, more nerdy theory – gravitational contraction. This idea was that the sun shines because of its own weight. Its gravity pulls all the gas inward, squeezing itself tighter and tighter. It's kind of like warming your hands by rubbing them together. We know that gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn are slightly contracting under their own weight and giving off more heat than they get from the sun. So yeah, gravitational contraction, also known as the Kelvin-Helmholtz mechanism, is very much real, but it's not what powers the sun. When researchers did the math, it showed the sun could only shine like that for about 20 to 30 million years. Eventually, scientists learned that the real secret behind the sun's power and longevity was something way more powerful – nuclear fusion. Now, deep inside the sun, it's unbelievably hot. We're talking 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. And it's under crazy pressure because the sun is so big and heavy. All that heat and pressure squashes hydrogen atoms and forces them to stick together. When 4 hydrogen atoms get squished hard enough, they turn into something new – a helium atom. When that happens, a little bit of their mass turns into energy, and that's what becomes sunlight and heat. For centuries, people feared the sun would someday go cold, and that will happen, eventually. About 5 billion years from now, our star will run out of hydrogen, and gravity will take over. But long before that, Earth will already be toast. According to a NASA life extinction prediction, our planet will become a scorched, uninhabitable rock not because the sun will go out, but because it will burn too hot. It turns out that those old apocalyptic ideas were not completely off. The sun will destroy life on Earth, just not by going cold. But why? Well, it's because, with time, the sun is getting brighter. And I'm not talking about its mood. It releases more energy. It's a slow, natural side effect of the nuclear fusion we just mentioned. Deep in the core, the sun has been fusing hydrogen into helium for billions of years. But as more helium piles up, the core gets denser and hotter. Think of it like a pressure cooker. The more pressure builds up inside, the more heat rises from within. That extra heat speeds up fusion, which means more energy gets released, and the sun starts shining just a little bit brighter. It's not dramatic, we won't notice it in a lifetime, but the future-proof androids we're going to build just might. With time, the extra heat adds up. The sun is already about 30% brighter than when the Earth was born. But life decline is going to happen much earlier, even before the given deadline. As the sun keeps cranking up the heat, Earth is gonna sweat. The extra sunlight raises global temperatures to the point where the ocean surfaces hit around 117 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to mess with the planet's entire climate system. Water vapor begins to rise from the oceans and accumulate in the upper atmosphere. This causes even more heat to be trapped, creating a thick, humid layer around Earth. Scientists refer to this ongoing cycle as the moist greenhouse effect. The rising temperatures aren't just drying out our planet, they're also harming plants. Plants rely on carbon dioxide from the air to grow and thrive. However, as Earth warms up, certain natural processes can take too much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. When that happens, there won't be enough CO2 left for plants to survive. Forests will disappear first, then grasslands, bushes, and even the toughest plants that usually handle extreme heat. This all will lead to oxygen collapse, because plants and CO2 are crucial for photosynthesis. In simple terms, this is how plants use sunlight, along with water and carbon dioxide, to create their own energy and produce oxygen as a waste product. Right now, oxygen makes up about 21% of Earth's atmosphere. But once it drops below even 1%, complex life as we know it will most likely disappear. Earth's biosphere will shrink to just a few microbes and extremophiles, hiding deep underground. But even they won't last long. It's worth noting that scientists ran two versions of the simulation, one with life like we have today and one with none at all. Surprisingly, both worlds lost their oxygen at about the same time, around 1 billion years from now. That means plant life and photosynthesis do help, but they're not the main thing keeping oxygen in the atmosphere. It's actually a long-term chemical battle between volcanic gases and rocks that gradually soak up oxygen like a sponge. And even after most life is gone, the heat will keep going, causing oceans to boil. Not all at once, but slowly and steadily, the oceans will begin to evaporate into the atmosphere. But that vapor won't just come back down as rain like it does now. Why? The atmosphere will be too hot and thick for that. Instead, sunlight will start breaking the water apart, and hydrogen will escape into space permanently. Once it's gone for good. Basically, instead of raining back down, Earth's water will slowly leak into space until there's nothing left. Even before the last puddles vanish, life under the sea will be long gone. Once the balance of temperature and oxygen is lost, not even the hardiest ocean life can hold on. In the end, Earth will become something we can barely recognize, a dry, lifeless rock. There will be no water, no oxygen, and no life left. The oceans will be gone. The atmosphere will be thin and toxic. Even the most resilient microbes will have disappeared. However, the sun will still shine in the sky. Earth will keep orbiting just like always. It'll still be a planet, just without life. But long before that cosmic finale, Earth will already be uninhabitable, which raises the big question. So, what could future humans do about all this? Well, escaping sun radiation and extinction might end up being humanity's biggest engineering challenge yet. Maybe we'll build massive space colonies and leap from planet to planet, staying just ahead of the sun's deadly heat. Even if we terraform Mars, making it more Earth-like so we can inhabit it, it'll still be cooking in the same solar oven, just on a lower shelf. Or maybe we'll live in giant rotating space habitats, like O'Neill cylinders, floating mini-worlds with gravity and recycled air, water, and energy to support long-term survival. Those could drift farther and farther from the sun as things heat up. Or who knows? Maybe we'll upload our minds to the cosmic cloud or hop into a higher dimension and watch the universe like it's, Netflix. Okay, this is definitely too nerdy, and we're going deep into sci-fi territory. But whatever the solution may be, humankind has a long time ahead to figure out how to survive the eventual end of Earth and life, or maybe even preserve it in whatever form it takes.
Look up when the sky is clear at night. You'll see thousands of tiny bright dots there. It may seem like they're fixed in one spot, but in reality, they're constantly moving. In 100,000 years, there won't be a constellation with the same shape or pattern we know today. And think about all those red dwarfs, small stars, planets, space bodies we can't see with the unaided eye. Red dwarf stars are especially cool. They're usually about half the size of our sun, and mostly 1/10 as bright. They may not be the brightest things in the sky, but they live for a very, very long time. Nuclear fusion reactions happen deep in star cores. That's what makes them shine. Large stars release huge amounts of energy, burning their stellar fuel. But such stars tend to burn all their fuel in only a couple of million years. Stars like our sun usually live for about 10 billion years, but red dwarfs don't use that much of their fuel. Their light is not so powerful, and they don't require much energy to support their existence. They're like energy-efficient cars. That's why they can last hundreds of billions of years. Some of the smallest ones may live for up to 10 trillion years. Most hydrogen in sun-like stars remains unspent. There's more of this gas in the atmosphere rather than in the core of such stars. This means most hydrogen doesn't take part in the fusion reactions. But it's different with red dwarfs. They circulate plasma throughout their entire bodies. These stars pull fresh hydrogen reserves from their outer layers into their core. That's what keeps fusion reactions running. One day, in the distant future, stars like our sun will run out of fuel and shut down. The universe will be full of small red dwarfs. They won't have enough energy to shine and brighten the space around them. Our descendants, if there are any, will inherit a dim, dark cosmos. As it gets older, the sun will balloon to a size where it will destroy nearby planets. First Mercury, then Venus, and then us. On the other hand, Earth will probably survive, but barely and not for long. The sun will burn it to a crisp when it gets closer. The outer planets of our solar system will also survive, but they'll move even farther away into space. The sun will lose some of its mass while increasing in size. Its gravitational pull establishes the orbits of the planets. When our star becomes less massive, the pull of its gravity will become weaker, and the outer planets won't have such a strong connection with the sun. Our solar system is not isolated. There are many other stars in our galaxy. Within 30 billion years, stars that travel nearby will mess with our outer planets, enough to rapidly launch some of the biggest ones out of the solar system altogether. The last planet to stay will stick around for a while longer, maybe even 100 billion years. But even that one will eventually end up kicked out of the solar system. There's a theory claiming that we got most of the water on our planet from ice-laden meteorites and comets, frozen balls of ice and dust. As they crashed into the early Earth, they probably brought water, which was necessary to develop life. But those very same objects that might have created life on our planet could also be its end. This is not a matter of if, more a matter of when. And scientists think it's very likely that an asteroid or comet big enough to wipe out life on Earth will smash into our planet. But it'll happen in the distant future. And fortunately, we have the technology to predict such things and react on time. But there are other cosmic collisions we can't avoid, no matter what we do. Andromeda, our neighboring galaxy, is moving toward the solar system at a speed of 68 miles per second. There are 2.5 million light years between the Milky Way and Andromeda, so luckily our neighbor won't cover that distance anytime soon. It'll only happen in around 4 billion years. Such a collision of two galaxies might lead to real chaos for our descendants, if any of them are still living on Earth, that is. The two galaxies will slide past each other. Then they'll draw apart until the gravitational force starts pulling them back together. As they merge, they'll both lose their disk-like structure and form one big elliptical galaxy. It's already got the nickname Milkomeda. The Milky Way as we know it today won't exist anymore. Space is in constant motion, changing all the time. Scientists have a couple of possible scenarios of what might happen with the universe in the future. Number 1, the Big Rip. This theory claims that the universe will expand infinitely. At one point, the pull of the expansion will get stronger than the gravitational force keeping it all together. If this happens, it will tear apart galaxies, stars, black holes, and all other space bodies, including Earth. The universe will turn into a bunch of disconnected particles. Until about 5 billion years ago, the universe was expanding slowly because of its powerful gravitational pull. Then its growth sped up. Some experts say it happened because of the effects of dark energy. Dark energy is a mysterious force that makes up almost 70% of our universe. This force pushes it to expand faster rather than slowing it down. So, in the case of the Big Rip scenario, dark energy will win over gravity to the point where it will be able to rip apart individual atoms. Scenario number 2, the Big Crunch. There's a possibility the universe will get to the point where it'll stop expanding. Gravity will become a dominant force. It might even reverse the expansion of the universe. Then, the cosmos will start shrinking, making planets, stars, and even entire galaxies collide. In the end, the whole universe will collapse in on itself. Once everything compresses into one infinitely small point, which is something called the Big Crunch, the universe may start expanding once again. Theory number 3, the Big Freeze. Brr. In this scenario, entropy will grow until it reaches its maximum value. Entropy is basically the idea that everything in the universe declines into disorder at some point. Once entropy gets to its maximum, the heat in the system will be spread evenly. The universe will then disappear because there won't be any room for heat to exist. Any mechanical motion inside the universe will stop. The cosmos will be so empty and gas will be so thin that no new stars will be able to form or shine again. In such a cosmos, time is just an endless void. Nothing ever happens with planets, stars, or living beings. The entire universe is frozen, dark, and motionless because there's no energy that can make things start working again. Many, many billions of years after the last stars burn out and fade, black holes will send a message that the universe has come to an end. Black holes are areas with extremely strong gravitational pull, so powerful that nothing can escape it. They can be as massive as 100 suns. As for supermassive black holes, their mass can be greater than that of 1 billion suns. You can find such giant black holes at the center of most galaxies. Like everything else, black holes will experience the same end. But when their moment comes, they won't gently disappear into the night. Black holes will go away in enormous bursts of fireworks, lighting up the universe in the last moments of their existence. It will be the end of the entire era. Black holes usually survive by gobbling down the stars and gas that come close enough. Their gluttony is the main feature that gives them away. In most cases, there's an accretion disk around a black hole. That disk is made of all those materials and particles it's torn apart and is pulling inside, similar to when water swirls down a drain. As the materials and particles draw closer, they start to move faster and faster. This generates heat, which makes the accretion disk glow, which again gives away the black hole. Yep, black holes aren't that great at hide and seek. Things that cross a black hole's event horizon, which is also called the point of no return, are lost forever. But Stephen Hawking had a theory that you might be able to escape from a black hole. There are particles moving even in a vacuum. Let's say one particle has positive and one has negative energy. If they both come close to a black hole, there's a chance that one will fall into it while the other will escape. That means the black hole has radiated the particle away. And this particle has taken some of the black hole's mass with it, which is why the black hole may start shrinking. As it begins to evaporate, it loses its mass and slowly becomes smaller. More and more particles start leaving until all the energy that's left behind escapes all at once. In the final tenth of a second, there will be a giant flash of energy and light in a very, very small region of space. And then, it's all gone.
40,000 years ago, someone scratched a few tiny lines and dots onto a piece of bone, and that little mark might be the oldest hard drive humanity ever created. Scientists now believe those Ice Age people weren't just doodling, but recording real information, structured, organized, repeatable data. And this discovery completely shifts the timeline of human intelligence. For decades, archaeologists kept finding strange symbols carved into Stone Age tools and sculptures. Those were simple shapes like crosses, dots, short lines, and tiny notches cut into bone or ivory. Explorers kept finding them in caves across Europe, including Germany, France, and Spain. They showed up on carved animal figurines, tools, and ornaments. Archaeologists dated them to be about 34,000 to 45,000 years old. That means people created these symbols during the Ice Age, when glaciers covered huge chunks of the planet, and mammoths still wandered the plains. For a long time, researchers believed these signs meant nothing in particular, maybe decorations, maybe tribal art. But a new computational study led by a linguist and an archaeologist showed it was more about data than decoration. The team analyzed more than 3,000 individual symbols carved into around 260 artifacts. They studied every mark and fed them into statistical models, the same type of mathematics researchers use to study language patterns or train artificial intelligence. The goal wasn't to translate the signs yet. Nobody knows exactly what they mean. Instead, the scientists looked at something called information density, which means how much meaningful data you can store in a sequence of symbols. When the researchers ran the numbers, they saw that the symbol sequences had almost the same information density as proto-cuneiform. That's the earliest writing system known from ancient Mesopotamia around 3000 BCE. It was roughly 40,000 years later. So, some signs in these Ice Age carvings repeat again and again in predictable ways: cross, 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 line, line, dot. That repetition resembles early data encoding, where patterns repeat because they store structured information. The researchers also analyzed the entropy of the coded messages. Entropy measures how unpredictable a sequence is. High entropy means lots of possible combinations, like a complex password. Low entropy means predictable repetition, and it looks like the Ice Age symbol systems have entropy levels very close to early proto-cuneiform tablets. That means the amount of information those carvings could store roughly matches the earliest writing records from the first cities. It proves that humans didn't just suddenly invent writing out of nowhere 5,000 years ago. Instead, humans spent tens of thousands of years experimenting with symbolic encoding systems and gradually increased their complexity until true writing was finally invented. One of the most interesting examples of such a coded message comes from a cave in southwestern Germany. Archaeologists discovered a tiny mammoth figurine carved from mammoth tusk ivory, small enough to fit in your palm. There's a neat row of engraved crosses and dots running along its surface. Another object called the adorant is a thin ivory plate, found in a different German cave, has a strange mythical creature that looks part human, part lion on it. The figure stretches upward like it's worshipping something, and across its body, someone carved rows of tiny dots and notches with careful spacing. Then there's the famous lion-human sculpture. If you look at the arm closely, you can see evenly spaced cuts along the limb. These marks seem intentional, deliberate, almost rhythmic. They look less like decoration and more like entries in a ledger. It makes those artifacts something like USB drives made of ivory. And because these ancient USB drives appear in different regions of Germany and in other parts of Europe, it could mean that Ice Age humans may have shared such symbolic messages across huge distances. Those hunter-gatherers living thousands of miles apart probably recognized the same patterns scratched into bone tools. Of course, scientists still don't know the exact meaning of these symbols. They could represent seasonal calendars, migration cycles, clan markers, or some concepts tied to rituals. So the most important discovery for now isn't the translation, but the structure of the signs that behave like a system. This coding system isn't the only proof that ancient minds invented complex systems long before modern technology arrived. There's a thick oval slab of limestone in a museum in the Netherlands. Archaeologists dug it up in the late 1800s and assumed it was some kind of Roman game board. The problem was that nobody could figure out the rules. The carved lines didn't match any known ancient game. Only in 2026, researchers finally solved the mystery with help from artificial intelligence. If you look at the stone closely, you can see that certain grooves on it are slightly deeper than others. It means that people slid pieces across those lines repeatedly, and the stone wore down over time. Conservation experts created extremely detailed 3D scans of the limestone surface to analyze those wear patterns. Those scans showed differences in depth smaller than a human hair. Every tiny groove became a clue about how players once moved their pieces. Then, the team brought in a special AI game simulation system designed to understand board games. They fed the system rules from about 100 historical games and asked it to test possibilities onto a digital copy of the Roman board. The AI played thousands of simulated matches against itself and tried different rule combinations each time. For every rule set, it tracked where the pieces moved and compared those paths to the wear patterns on the real stone. It repeated this process around 1,000 times per rule set until finally certain patterns started lining up perfectly. The system narrowed all the possibilities to a small group of related blocking games. In this type of strategy game, two players move pieces along fixed paths, trying to trap the opponent's pieces in corners or dead ends. If you've ever played tic-tac-toe or checkers, you already understand the basic idea. To control space, predict the opponent's next move, and close the trap. The simulations showed that the Romans most likely played this game with small tokens made of glass, bone, or pottery sliding along those carved grooves. And that discovery matters more than you might think. Historians used to believe blocking games appeared in early medieval Europe, centuries after the Roman Empire collapsed. But this limestone board showed them that such games existed nearly 1,000 years earlier. So, Roman players had strategy games that helped them develop forward planning, recognizing patterns, and thinking of different combinations and possibilities. Now let's travel even further back in time, long before Roman cities and writing of any kind. Our destination, Olduvai Gorge in northern Tanzania, one of the oldest important archaeological sites on Earth. In 2025, researchers studying the area found something unexpected in ancient sediments. It was a set of tools made from the limb bones of elephants and hippos. And these tools date back about 1.5 million years. Scientists found 27 bone tools, some nearly 15 inches long, shaped into sharp blades. Early humans most likely used them on animal carcasses or to process tough materials. At first glance, they seem simple, but it actually looks like the toolmakers shaped these bones using knapping, the same process used to chip stone tools. Knapping means striking a material carefully so that small flakes break away, gradually forming a sharp edge. Bone behaves very differently from stone. It contains collagen, which makes it slightly flexible and elastic. Hit the bone too hard and it shatters unpredictably. Hit it too softly and nothing happens. That means whoever made these tools understood how the material worked. They adapted their technique to shape bone without destroying it. Archaeologists believe Homo erectus, an early human species with body proportions similar to ours, created these implements. It also looks like the toolmakers preferred thick limb bones, which are the strongest parts of animal skeleton. To make that choice, you need to understand anatomy and material strength. Engineers today still use that same logic when choosing materials for machines. When we put all these discoveries together, we see that our ancestors designed systems, invented technologies, stored information, and played complex games long before modern civilization appeared. So we didn't just suddenly become intelligent. We've been building knowledge for tens of thousands of years.
Beneath the sands of Luxor, scientists found something that was perhaps never meant to be found. Over 1,000 decorated stone blocks that belonged to the ruined temple of a woman pharaoh. It got us thinking, why was this temple so brutally destroyed, and who was this woman? Her name is Hatshepsut, and she is now considered one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, but for a long time, history almost forgot her. She ruled during the 18th dynasty, from around 1479 to 1458 BCE. She's remembered for her ambitious building projects, successful military campaigns, and flourishing trade expeditions. It turns out she was one out of 4 women to take the title of pharaoh in Egyptian history. The next woman would have to wait for 1,500 years to reign, and that woman we know as Cleopatra. The story of how Hatshepsut got to be a pharaoh is the most colorful part of this tale. As far as most dynastic rules go, it's usually men that are first in line for royal thrones. In Egypt, that was the same. That's why, when Pharaoh Thutmose I had a daughter as his firstborn, that was a big no-no as far as his succession line went. A few years later, Pharaoh Thutmose I passes away. The crown passed to Thutmose II, who ruled briefly, only to leave the throne to his infant son, Thutmose III. In this scenario, Hatshepsut was this pharaoh's stepmother. So what happened was that Hatshepsut served as advisor to her stepson, since he was too young to rule on his own. But after 7 years, she made an unprecedented move. She decided to seize power and declared herself Pharaoh of Egypt. Now, this was not a simple power grab. Hatshepsut understood that if she wanted to rule, she had to present herself as a legitimate king. In a bold move, she adopted the full royal regalia, including the false beard traditionally worn by male pharaohs. She was often depicted in statues and hieroglyphs as a man, wearing the pharaoh's kilt and headdress. But this wasn't about disguising herself. Experts believe she never tried to hide her identity. Inscriptions on her statues often included feminine titles, like Daughter of Re, or grammatical structures that combined male and female terms, such as His Majesty herself. This showed that while she adopted traditional symbols of kings, she still acknowledged her true gender. But she needed to go even further. To legitimize her rule, she crafted an elaborate origin story. She claimed that the deity Amun himself had visited her mother in the form of her father, Thutmose I, and that she was his divine daughter. Now, this was no small claim, since pharaohs were seen as deities on earth. By aligning herself with Amun, she strengthened her right to the throne. In temple carvings, she depicted this divine birth with Amun, presenting her as his rightful heir. These narratives weren't just mythology, they were tools, ensuring her position remained unchallenged. Hatshepsut also took a new name, Ma'at Kari, which translates roughly to "Truth is the soul of the sun god." The word Ma'at was central to Egyptian beliefs. It represented order, justice, and divine balance. Pharaohs were expected to uphold Ma'at to ensure Egypt's stability. By calling herself Ma'at Kari, Hatshepsut was likely reinforcing that she was a legitimate and rightful ruler. Her reign was truly great. She led Egypt into an era of peace and prosperity, launching massive building projects and restoring temples across the kingdom. Her most famous achievement was the construction of her temple at Deir el-Bahari, a pretty impressive architectural masterpiece carved into the cliffs of Luxor. Hatshepsut initiated one of the most ambitious construction projects in ancient Egyptian history, commissioning monuments, temples, and obelisks to immortalize her reign. It's argued that she continued with the construction of the Avenue of the Sphinxes, a grand road lined with statues leading to the Karnak Temple. For many, her shining architectural achievement was the towering obelisk she had carved from single pieces of granite. One of these, weighing over 320 tons, still stands today. Now, beyond building, she expanded Egypt's influence through trade. She sent an expedition to the mysterious land of Punt, believed to be modern-day Somalia or Eritrea, bringing back riches like gold, ivory, and exotic animals. Her fleet of ships sailing the Red Sea marked the first recorded trade mission of its kind, establishing economic ties that would benefit Egypt for generations. Yet, for all of her success, something strange happened after Hatshepsut passed away. Her successor, aka her stepson Thutmose III, who had been overshadowed by her rule, took a drastic step. He ordered her name to be erased from history. Her statues were defaced, her inscriptions chiseled away, and her achievements credited to other rulers. It was as if she had never existed. Some believe Thutmose III wanted to reclaim his rightful place as pharaoh, while others suggest that later rulers, uncomfortable with the idea of a female pharaoh, sought to restore traditional male dominance. The story gets even more tragic. The power struggle between stepmother and stepson continues, since, even after her passing away, Thutmose III built his own temple right next to Hatshepsut's at the Valley of the Kings. But he built his temple with one deliberate modification. His monument was built 11 feet higher than hers. Mind you that this was no accident, it was a symbolic statement. He wanted to overshadow her legacy. But history had other plans. Hatshepsut's legacy started to be rediscovered in the 19th century, and it was only through careful archaeological investigation that her reign was properly recognized. Today, Hatshepsut is remembered as one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. Her reign, once erased, has been reconstructed through constant archaeological discoveries, proving that her power and influence could not be so easily forgotten. Her resting place had been hidden in plain sight, her body removed from its original chamber in an effort to erase her from history. This final piece of evidence cemented her legacy, proving that even attempts to erase a pharaoh could not really do it. Hatshepsut's grand temple, Djeser-Djeseru, was a stunning architectural feat, designed to immortalize her reign and solidify her divine connection to Amun. But after her death, her successor, Thutmose III, launched that calculated effort to erase her legacy, and parts of her temple were dismantled. Historians still debate why. Was it a dynastic power move, an attempt to restore traditional male rule, or a bid to strengthen Thutmose III's claim to the throne? Maybe he was just a jerk. Whatever the reason, the destruction wasn't immediate. It happened decades after her death, suggesting it might not have been a personal revenge, but a broader political strategy. Yet, despite these efforts, her temple endures, and so does her story, a defiant echo of Egypt's first great female pharaoh. Let's travel through space and time to another place. Dashur, Egypt, is known to be home to several resting places of people from ancient Egypt. In the year 2017, scientists uncovered a long-lost pyramid. They quickly called the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities because they suspected it was going to be a big deal. Unlike most pyramids that were found in the area, this one was completely sealed. Lifting the capstone was a delicate process. When they finally managed to open the pyramid, they expected to find an undisturbed chamber. Instead, it was chaos. The place had been looted, and the personal items of the person that had passed away were scattered all over. But in the middle of the wreckage, they found a chest. Using the latest scanning technology, they managed to read the damaged hieroglyphs on its surface. What they found was unbelievable. The name inscribed there was as clear as day: Princess Hatshepsut. Ooh. The discovery made in 2017 also opened up a lot of questions. After further analysis, scientists discovered the remains belonged to another Hatshepsut. It belonged to a princess that lived during Egypt's 13th dynasty. The fact that her resting place had been looted before it was sealed made scientists wonder, were these ancient people trying to hide something about this public figure? And why is there almost no record about her in ancient Egyptian history? Ooh, stay tuned.
Egyptologists have been digging around every inch of the Great Pyramid for ages. Yet somehow, they overlooked this stunning pink granite bathtub buried a few miles next to it. And here's the deal. This mysterious oval tube lying next to the Khufu pyramid for years may provide evidence that the Egyptians built the pyramids not only for monumental purposes, but also to generate electricity, experimenting with it long before Alessandro Volta and Thomas Edison. The Giza Plateau is famous for its three pyramids, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. But there are also two smaller foundations next to them, the unfinished North Pyramid of Zayet El Aryan and the Layer Pyramid. Some researchers say these buildings were never finished, while others think they were destroyed for more mysterious reasons. One of these reasons might have to do with the original usage of the Giza pyramids, the idea that they were used as an electricity generator. To connect these dots, we need to go back to the beginning of the 20th century. That's when an Italian architect and Egyptologist named Alessandro Barsanti decided to examine the Zayet El Aryan pyramid. Near the site, he noticed something unusual: scattered granite fragments. To a casual passerby, these might have seemed insignificant, but Barsanti recognized the signs. You see, ancient Egyptians often used sites to prepare stones before transporting them to their final destinations. The fact that there was granite on the ground intrigued him. Granite was a more expensive material than the limestone typically used for pyramids, which suggested that it might have been intended for an important and possibly hidden structure. At a depth of 68 feet, they encountered a huge pink granite block. He kept going with the excavations, and they revealed ancient inscriptions carved into the stones. They sent the drawing to experts, but no one could decipher what they meant. Were they instruction sets to something? That's when Barsanti made his biggest discovery. He found an oval-shaped vat carved from pink granite and polished to a mirror-like finish. The thing is, the vat had been carefully sealed. When they opened it, they found a thin black residue along the walls. I'm thinking something in the lines of a black oily substance. This discovery raised many questions for him. It didn't make sense to him that ancient Egyptians would go above and beyond to seal and protect this strange vat. By 1911, Barsanti had to abandon his effort to figure out what was the deal with that mysterious pit. But his findings intrigued researchers all over the world, and they've got their own opinions about it. One of these modern theories suggests that the other pyramids could have been used as a part of a bigger whole. It suggests that the Khufu pyramid was actually used as a water pump designed to irrigate the desert area. Apparently, the pyramid's internal chambers would function as a hydraulic system. In the 1990s, an engineer took this theory seriously and studied the pyramid's subterranean chamber. Surprisingly, he found actual signs of water damage. Apparently, the pyramid generated powerful compression waves, aka pulses, that could create electricity. This raised an important question. Could the ancient Egyptians have used the pyramids as a generator in order to produce electricity? On paper, that was proven to be possible, but hey, agreeing on the original use of the pyramids is probably one of the most difficult things in the world. So, we're still not 100% sure about this. Apart from that, Egypt is a playground for important discoveries regarding humanity's past. I mean, scientists have just discovered what looks like a cosmic command center, similar to that room from the Doctor Strange movies. They discovered an L-shaped astronomical observatory, measuring around 9,000 square feet, dating back to the 6th century BCE. Definitely the first and largest of its kind from that era. The mud brick structure housed tools used for calculating dates related to ancient Egyptian rites, royal coronations, and agricultural plans. This observatory is located in the archaeological site known as the Temple of Phuto, just 50 miles east of Alexandria. It's pretty impressive. The structure was designed so that you'd get inside the room through an east-facing entrance. This way, you'd get to see the sunrise. Once inside, you'd find a pretty huge shadow clock, used to tell time by tracking the movement of shadows inside the room. This variant of a sundial clock was nearly 16 feet long. That was quite an exciting discovery. Another interesting one was that scientists and Egyptologists have discovered the first ever pregnant mummy. Now, even if we know quite a lot about mummification processes, we keep making discoveries that open new doors into the lives of ancient Egyptians. It took so long for someone to find out this mummy was expecting at the time she was embalmed because she was placed in a male's coffin. More specifically, a male priest. Historians say that during the 19th century, a lot of traders mixed coffins up in order to sell them. Yes, that means they opened them and switched mummies to please their buyers. It was a complete surprise because they were hoping to study more about ancient health issues when they opened this coffin up. But they had another special research on their hands: prenatal practices in ancient Egypt. This mummified woman who lived about 2,000 years ago was from 20 to 30 years old when she passed away. She was found in Thebes, and her remains were incredibly well preserved. You see, mummification recipes varied across Egypt. In this woman's case, researchers could tell she was a member of the high society since she was buried with special amulets. But since mummification methodologies differed so much between cities and time periods, they still have to dig further to understand why she was embalmed along with her baby. Speaking of mummies, scientists were digging up a final resting place in Saqqara, also in Egypt, and they unearthed 2 embalming workshops. One was for humans and the other for sacred animals. Apparently, the workshops date back to about 2,400 years ago. They were equipped with stone beds, clay pots, and ritual vessels. Everything you needed to mummify. But that's not all. Archaeologists also stumbled upon cheese stored in jars behind tombs that were over 3,000 years old. Yep, cheese. This shows that the ancient Egyptians were pretty savvy when it came to preserving food, too. They knew how to store stuff for the long haul, not just the mummies. It really shows how they applied their preservation skills to both food and bodies, giving us a glimpse into their impressive technological know-how. Scientists have also found one of Egypt's oldest complete mummies, and to their surprise, it was completely covered in gold. You see, Egyptian mummies covered in gold are already a rare thing, but they weren't expecting it to be the oldest one ever found. The mummy was quite well preserved, and they could identify that it was the remains of a wealthy man called Hatshepsut. Many symbols show that he was important and wealthy, like the band he wore on his head and the bracelet on his chest. He was also dressed in a tunic wrapped with a belt, which was a way to preserve the good appearance of a person after they passed away. To reveal it, they had to open the final resting place with mortar. Basically, it was like they were opening a time machine, just as the ancient Egyptians did 4,300 years ago. If you think about it, it's almost like entering a time capsule. Enough about mummies. Scientists also found something very exciting hovering above the pyramids. They had to use a fancy top-notch radar known as LARID, aka Low Altitude Long Range Ionospheric Radar, which can see these invisible waves far away into the sky. LARID helped them discover giant plasma bubbles floating in the air above the pyramids. These bubbles are called plasma bubbles, and they wreak havoc on modern technologies. I mean, they can disrupt GPS and phone signals for hundreds of kilometers in diameter from where they're located. These bubbles are massive, sometimes as big as cities, and they're caused by the sudden depletion of charged particles in the ionosphere. So, instead of spreading out evenly throughout the ionosphere, they stick together in this wave-like form. This was a pretty important discovery because it can help scientists understand how to prevent these waves from messing with our technology.